Hi, I just got back from TCAF, the Toronto Comic Arts Festival. Well, not back directly from the festival, a lot of other stuff happened. And I thought I would just try to share the experience with you in some detail. Of course, there's kind of aspects of this more relevant to the channel, i.e., everything to do with Asano sensei's appearance there. But I feel like in order to really capture my feelings and experiences around Asano Sensei and Asano Sensei's presence there. I just want to kind of tell you like the whole story, you know? So this is the whole story of TCAF. Alright, so as soon as I knew that Asano Sensei was coming there, I started to feel this kind of low level anxiety and nervousness that I always get when I know that there's some opportunity for me to interact with one of my artistic heroes. And Asano stands near the top of the pantheon in terms of any creator and any medium. The amount of effect that Oyasumi Punpun had on me, reading it, in my mid-teens, my perspective on manga, my perspective on life, it just was a revolution. So there's always just this inherent disbalance where the celebrity, the famous person, whoever it is, the creator, is so profoundly and inexpressibly special to you, but you can never make that reciprocal. You can never convey that in such a way that you become special to them. And yet there is kind of this egoistic desire, I think, to have exactly that, to somehow get across your feelings to such an extent that they realize the impact that they've had on you, and that maybe in even some small fraction of that, that stays with them. That's always my desire. And I don't think, even though I call it egoistic, I wouldn't say it's egotistical or anything. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to want. Um, but it's not an experience that you can always have, and we'll get to that. So my first idea was that I should rehearse something to say to him in Japanese. I thought he would likely have an interpreter with him, or maybe he could speak some English, but that it would have much more of an effect and really convey my sincerity and my seriousness if I could express myself in Japanese. So I tried to practice a little bit, but it was very hard. I couldn't really think of something both that I was confident in being able to say and that felt really satisfying. My next idea was to write a letter to him, and I started like trying to map out what that would be like. I thought it would be a lot easier, with the aid of the computer and stuff, to type up something, and then I was going to like handwrite it, deliver it to him. But I just procrastinated, and stuff was going on, and I avoided it and I did easier things instead. And in the end, I didn't prepare a letter and I didn't really come up with anything specific to say. And that, so all the way up until Friday night when I was over at a friend's place and I was like, oh, I should go home and work on the letter. And then I just didn't. So that was kind of the mood I was in heading out to TCAF on Saturday morning. I drove up with some friends of mine. We drove to an outskirts subway station. Then we got on the subway. Then there was a strange incident. I was talking to one of my friends. Five of us went up. I was talking to one of my friends about Marvel movies, because later that night I was gonna go see the new Avengers movie, and there was this kid. Seemed like a pretty young kid that I had kind of noticed before because he was doing pull-ups in the subway car, which was strange. There's like the bars for holding onto, and he was just doing pull-ups to amuse himself. And he had been like wandering up and down with a cell phone charger, like clearly looking somewhere to plug that in, but of course on the subway you can't. And then he overheard us talking about Marvel movies. Well, I think first he asked us like, how close are we to downtown? We let him know. And then he obviously wanted to just have a conversation, so I was like, sure, let's see what's up with this guy. So we chatted for a while, and it led to him asking, what are we doing in the city? Like, oh, we're going to this. It's always hard to explain TCAF to people. It's like, oh, it's a comic book festival, but it's not like a comic convention. It's more for like artistic comic books, and then even with the Marvel movies thing, like I'll talk about this more later, but like I don't really follow them at all. I just happened to be in town when a bunch of friends of mine were going, and they were like, "Oh, you got to come along," and I was like, "All right, sure." It just seemed like fun. But you know, this kid was obviously like really into them, and it's like I really don't know what I can say to you. But anyway, so I eventually asked him like, "Oh, what are you coming into the city for?" And he said, "I'm going to get my level 3 Reiki healing certification." And I was just like, okay, like I'm never sure what to do in these situations. I couldn't possibly be like, I don't think that's real. I hope you're not paying a lot of money for this, because that's just not a conversation that I would could possibly have with a stranger. Um, but at the same time, and I'm also just genuinely curious. Like, okay, what is this? I mean, I kind of know about these sort of things, alternative medicine. I was like, oh, is this like kind of an alternative medicine thing? He's like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And I kind of asked him some more questions, and he explained it at length that it's about chakra points and finding energies and channeling energies in different ways to heal the organs and heal the body. Um, and yeah, it's like finding that balance where like I don't want to like encourage it really, but I don't want to discourage it either. I don't want this to become adversarial because then I can't learn more about it. And it's like before I should judge it, like, well, I'm gonna judge it. Like I know that it's not I, it's not scientific. Anyways, so we just had this kind of long, strange conversation about Reiki healing and the history of Reiki healing and chakra and stuff, and it made me think a lot about Pun Pun. Of course, because I was going to see Asano Sensei, or Asano Sensei. I don't think I say his name properly. That's already 1 point minus for my Japanese. But yeah, it started making me think of the cult in Pun Pun and just the existence of these people that are often outwardly normal or maybe outwardly just a little bit strange, like, oh, this guy's doing pull-ups, what's up with that? But that like don't strike you as like alarming or concerning really. But then you realize like, oh, like a lot of people actually believe in unscientific things, and it shouldn't be too surprising when people start subscribing to these systems and participating in these uh, like alternative practices or whatever, because a lot of people like that barrier between scientific and unscientific is not like a hard and fast barrier. It seems like quite a lot of people are totally willing to go into, like, I don't think this guy, his thing with the Reiki healing made him like a general crank or anything. Like I wouldn't imagine that he was also like some sort of crazy 9/11 truther or believes in aliens running the shadow government or something. But it seems like a lot of people have like small supernatural beliefs. So I don't know. I was just kind of thinking about that, thinking about cults and um, I don't know. Anyways, so then we go to TCAF. I got the first of 3 posters. This one they were just giving out for free. I got this one right when I walked in, which was great because I wasn't really clear on how you got. I knew there was 3 posters. I wasn't really clear on how you got each of them. But this one was easy. It's volume 1 of Dead Demons Destruction. It's upside down. I was like, why is the text backwards? Well, of course, it's because it's upside down. Sugoi, and on the back it's got all of the works that Viz has published. There was kind of an oddness around the fact that like his works kind of are, there's a bunch that are published by Viz, and then there's one that's published by Fantagraphics, and then one that's published by like ADV or something, Girl on the Shore. So like different aspects of his appearance would advertise like different subsets of his work. depending on if it was like TCAF promoting Asano as a whole, or if it was like Fantagraphics promoting Nigahara Holograph and Asano, or just like Viz promoting the Viz titles and Asano. So that was pretty funny. And then I got the schedule, which I'll show you here. It's kind of cool. I don't know if I have my previous years, but it's neat. Like every year they get some of the artists that are going to appear there to do various illustrations and stuff. And then I realized, oh shoot, I missed the first signing. It's like around noon. And he has 3 signing events scheduled, so it's like, okay, fine, I'll just go to the other ones. But pretty much immediately I have to, oh, not immediately, I went to one booth. We went into, it's like an area you kind of have to line up for because it's limited capacity. It's like a fire safety hazard, and there's people checking how many people are going in and going out. So me and all my friends booked it to that because usually that just gets busier and busier as the day goes on. And you have to wait in line longer and longer, so we got in pretty quick. I went to one booth, which was selling a comic called Doki Doki High School Life. And I looked at the cover and I was like, is this like Monster Girls? Is this the high school Monster Girls? And then they were like, yeah, it's funny, it's fun. And I opened up like a random page, and there was like a bunch of Chad jokes, which have become, even though that meme is like old and dead, it's become like revived among my friend group, and I found them really funny. So I bought those, and then I was trying to find the Chad jokes, but whatever. They just seem pretty good. I'm looking forward to it. I'll get to read those at some point. They came in a little bundle with this nice little sleeve. And then I looked at my phone again, and I realized that the event that was starting at 1:30, which was advertised as Inio Asano Spotlight, was starting pretty soon. That the time had snuck up on me. And at first I was like, oh, I should get there like maybe 10 minutes ahead, 15 minutes ahead. And then I was like, no, what am I saying? I should just go now. Like, what is the harm in going now? And I'm so glad that I did, because it was really packed as soon as I got there, and I barely just got a seat like right at the edge of a bench. And I don't know, I was like kind of nervous. I thought it was going to be like a Q&A session. So I started like really racking my brain to try to come up with some sort of good question to ask. And fighting this egoistic thing of like, what questions do I really want asked? Like, what questions do I really want to know the answer to? And what questions do I think would make a good impression of myself onto Sensei? I realized like both of those desires were kind of fighting in my mind. And I didn't come up with any sort of good question. The closest I came up with was I always wanted to ask, in Punpun, one of my favorite things about it is that as Punpun ages, there's like subtle changes in how things are depicted, like how background characters are depicted, or even the backgrounds themselves sometimes kind of mature along with Punpun. And it reminded me a lot of Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a young man, where as the titular artist, Stephen Dedalus, ages, the way things are described age with him. And it's like you're seeing his perspective, so things are like, as when he's a child, they're like reduced down to like the childlike terms for things, and like to the extent that he can understand it or explain it. And it's like very surreal and stuff at the start, and it mirrors Punpun really nicely. So I was like, this is this is a question that'll make me look like quite the intellectual. But I was wearing, I have like a Ulysses t-shirt. It's just the cover of like an early edition of James Joyce's Ulysses. My mom got it for me. So I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna look like a fucking nerd if I ask about Joyce. I'm gonna look like such a tryhard wearing a Joyce shirt, asking about Joyce. So this is all just like swarming around in my head, just this kind of anxiety. Anyways, I felt like also like way less cool than everyone there. Everyone seemed so cool and fashionably dressed and hip and modern. Not like nerds, you know, not not like manga nerds that you see at anime conventions, but I don't know. I'm not sure what I expected, because TCAF always attracts that sort of crowd versus like the crowd you would see at an anime convention. I'm not trying to sound judgmental. I of course love all sorts of people that go to anime conventions. I go to anime conventions myself. But yes, I felt, I don't know. At any rate, the event turned out to be like a prepared interview that there was a woman who was like a manga scholar, I believe from Toronto, and she asked some questions that she had prepared, and Asano had an interpreter. So it was a good interview. It was really interesting. She had slides to kind of go along with her questions to like illustrate the points. There was, let's see, a lot of it was kind of like on thematic questions, which are difficult to ask because a lot of it is sort of, I kind of picked up on this theme. Was it deliberate? And if so, can you kind of expand on it? And quite often, I don't know if it was kind of the barrier of the format and that Asano didn't really seem, or perhaps wasn't as comfortable like through the linguistic barrier. But a lot of the times he was like, I didn't really notice that, or I didn't really care about that. Well, not a lot. It happened a few times. I'm pretty sure Viz filmed it to put online somewhere at some point, so you can maybe see me in the crowd. It was kind of interesting too that there was like a phenomenon where Asano would answer in Japanese, and then there would be like a small, like if he said something funny, there'd be like a small wave of laughter. But sometimes I got to join, which was very exciting. Sometimes I could follow him enough. If I concentrated really hard on just understanding him, I could sometimes tell. But then sometimes I would realize that I wasn't actually like paying too much attention to the flow of the interview in general because I'm just really hyper focusing on trying to understand him. So I didn't try that hard too often. But yeah. So again, it was cool. Yeah, that there was like this first wave of laughter among the Japanese speakers of the crowd, and then after the translation, there was like the broad wave of laughter of everyone hearing the translated funny. But again, it just made me feel like really outclassed. It made me feel like totally like anonymized, and that I couldn't become special to Asano in any sort of way. Even though I feel like I'm such a devoted fan, even though I've been reading his works for so long, I realized that was probably true for like everyone there. And there was a girl sitting kind of like in front and to the side a bit of me, and I could see that she was drawing. And I would like look over every once in a while because it was cool. Like it was really cool. Just with like a mechanical pencil doing sketches of people in the crowd. She was so good. And I realized like Asano has a lot more in common with her. Asano probably wants to talk with her a lot more than he would want to talk with me. Because they've actually kind of shared an experience, you know? They've like, even if maybe like for all I know, she wasn't even a fan of his comics. And just came because he was like, I don't think this is the case, but it could be true. And even if that was the case, I think he would still be more interested in speaking with her. So I don't know, I was feeling kind of down in the dumps. Like it was a really interesting panel, and I'm glad I went to it, of course. I learned quite a lot about his perspective on his works, and it was just enthralling to see him, the human being, sitting there. But yeah, I was just like, oh man, I just want to like be somebody, you know? I want to be special in some sense. So then I was kind of wandering around after that. Just kind of wanted to be alone. But I ran into a friend of mine, and she was looking for her boyfriend, who's another friend of mine. So I was like, all right, let's go find him. We wandered around together. And we met up with him, and then all three of us wandered around together, and it was good. Then we went to the gift shop, where I bought... this is the same? Oh, this must be my friend's. Yeah, my friend gave me his. This one is, oh, okay, all right, there. So, I was like, you got one if you bought volume 1 of Dead Demons Did a Destruction. So even though I already bought it because I wanted the poster, I bought it again This is the die fandom of me. Oh yeah, yeah. So, but wait, no. This is before that. I'm going in chronological order. I can't get out of my chronological order. That's bad storytelling. Anyways, it just made me think of something. Okay, so I bought this again, which means that I got the poster, this poster, which I quite like. Holy shit, the Earth is fucked. And this, of course, Dead Demons, Destruction. It's kind of in the style of old sci-fi B movies, and it has that disclaimer that's like an all manga. I like that it seems to be kind of like cut from similar posters on either side, to kind of give it that like mass-produced. These are just being put up in big strips along the sides of buildings to like advertise a movie. Of course, instead it's advertising like a very niche manga, or I thought a very niche manga, but apparently he's super popular now in the West. We'll talk about that more later. So I bought that, and then you could also just buy directly another poster. This one is my favorite. This is one he did specifically for TCAF. Beautiful. Wow. Wow. Oh, it's so cool. You can find it online and look at a fairly high resolution image of it if me holding the poster up to my webcam doesn't suffice. So I bought all that, and then those friends had to go home and do some stuff, and then yet another friend was coming, so I was waiting for him. While I was waiting for him, there was like an old man in the Balzac's cafe that fell down. This was just kind of an incident. I went and tried to help him up. Another guy was there, we helped him up. And I saw that he had a figure from the manga series Cheese Sweet Home, which I saw that they were selling in the gift shop. And I don't know, man, it just struck me. I don't know if I can explain why now, like a day later or so. But there was something very tender and sad about it. Something like very fragile that I felt kind of blessed to have witnessed, to have understood. But at the same time, it really kind of dug into me. I can really, I don't know if I can still put it into the thesis of my overall mood. That happened. My friend showed up. Right after my friend showed up, Asano sensei was walking by. He was walking by with his editor. And I said, "Ah, hello, sensei." And he turned and acknowledged me. And I was like, "Oh, daifan desu." He said, "Ah, arigato." And he left. That was it. And I felt, I don't know. It's not like I could really have a conversation with him there. Obviously, he was on his way somewhere. He had his editor with him, and they were on their way somewhere. But just the fact that like daifan desu among my friends has become this meme, because when I went to Comic Cat last time, like Jesus, like 4 years ago now, there was a mangaka, the lady that does Kaze-san was there. So I bought her dojins, and I wanted to say something, and all I could do is just say daifan desu. Like, I could not come up with anything else. Like, my Japanese back then was like way worse than it is now. Not that it's great now, so you should really realize how like Aka-chan tier I was. And all I could, daifan desu. And then when I saw Asano, all I could say was daifan desu. I just did it for the meme, and my friend was laughing at me, and this is like, ah. So that didn't make me feel great either. But I hung out with that friend for a while. We wandered around a bit, and then we met up with the initial 4 people that I drove down with, who had also met up with some other friends that were there, the friends that I was staying with that night. And we went to Holt Renfrew, which is like a very fancy clothing store. So I have some friends that are into fashion, and I consider myself somewhat into fashion. And we looked around at all the fancy stuff, and it was nice. And it was one of the first times I've been to a store like this since I've been working. And it felt a little different now that, like, before I just straight up could not buy them. And now I could buy them, but it would be like unwise. Like I would be much better off saving that money to go to Japan, or just saving that money for the sake of having it in case of emergencies, or something like that. But knowing that very few things in the store were like totally out of reach for me, that if I wanted to empty my bank account and buy that boy with a pipe, or that's the Frank Ocean lyric, but to buy these extremely expensive shoes, or this trench coat that looked really cool, or whatever, it was like more in my grasp. It actually could have happened. That felt weird. That felt really weird. I found that it wasn't as exciting anymore. It wasn't as appealing. It wasn't a question of now, like, it's like before I had a job, if you would ask me how much money would you need in your bank account to just start buying the clothes that you really want, buying, or the clothes that you think you really want, buying the clothes that are most appealing to you, even though they're at this high price point, what would it be? I would have said a number less than the amount that I have now. I really would have. And now that I'm like at that point, and it's not just this like out there ideal, but it's something that I can, it's like, the coat I have is fine. The shirts I have are fine. I don't know. It was, so I don't know. It felt like it lost a little bit of its mystique, but I still really enjoyed myself. I will always enjoy looking at designer clothes, and it was fun too because the friend group I was with was split pretty nicely, where I think it was about half and half of people that were like into fashion and excited about all these brands and excited to see these new things, and people that had no interest and were shocked and appalled at the price of things. So you kind of could have your cake and eat it too. You could really genuinely appreciate, but then also have the fun of the shock value of like, hey, guess how much this shirt is? No, add another zero. uh, yeah, we did that for a while. And then me and, this is hard to explain. I don't want to use people's names because it's my friends and I don't want to feel like I'm violating their privacy. But me and one of that friend group, the friend that came and saw me when I saw Asano Sensei, that was there when I said Daifendas, him and me then went to another group of friends. These friends I played Super Smash Bros. With, to go see Infinity War. So we hung out and we got curry, which was great. And we had lots of laughs. One of said friends is super into the new Idolmaster game, Shiny Colors. So we were talking about that and joking around about that a lot. I'm just selling you that to give a sense of what kind of people these are. Degenerates. And I went to go see this gigantic blockbuster Marvel movie, which I thought like other people in my group would know, like, that somebody was super into it, that somebody must have proposed it, and then kind of like simultaneously we realized that like not really any of us like actually knew what it was, or like what was gonna happen, or what it was about. One friend of mine, once we decided we were going, he like studied up a bit, and he watched some of the movies that had been recommended to him to understand the plot. So he was like a step ahead of us. But it was like, I still don't understand like how it happened. Like, I think it was just kind of like an offhand suggestion made possibly semi-ironically, that like the rest of us were just like, well, okay, like probably somebody genuinely wants to do this. Anyway, so we all went to go see it. I had a beer at Curry, and then the movie theater had beer, so I had another beer. So I was in a pretty good mood. And it was a ton of fun, man. I don't know. It was just nonstop, and almost every scene was like, and then it like, oh shit, somebody's here, and then it like cuts and pans to that person. It's just, I don't know who that is. It just kept happening. I didn't know who anyone was. There was like so many confusing parts. Like, Don Cheadle showed up. I was like, what the fuck? Don Cheadle is in this movie? And then later, I hope this isn't spoilers. I don't know if this is spoilers or not. He was like in another Iron Man suit. I was like, what the fuck? It's Don Cheadle. Why is he another Iron Man? And then I didn't know which one was Captain America. And at the end, I was like, why didn't Captain America show up? I thought he was like a main character. So it was that guy. The guy with the beard. Well, he didn't never, well, I hope this isn't spoilers. He never uses the Captain America shield. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. It felt like, I was like, oh, this must be what anime is like. Like if I tried to show someone One Piece, if I tried to show them like the end of Ain's Lobby or something, where it's just all the fights, because it seems like this was what the movie was like. Everything else had been set up, and now it was just like all the fighting and all the explosions and stuff, which was crazy. Some of the special effects like really wowed me. Some of the other ones I was just like, okay, like a lot of the choreographed fight scenes, just like, oh my god, just get this over with. I'm not that impressed with like athleticism in movies, I guess. Like when somebody does like a crazy flip to kick somebody, it's just like, okay. But I like this stuff with like CGI used in creative ways, or when they have like really cool, like a sense of speed that's conveyed really well, or a sense of impact that's conveyed really well. Anyways, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Then after that, a bunch of us went back to the place where I was staying, and we played Drawd. I Deadly Rooms of Death. To try to explain this game is a whole other video or a series of videos. It's one of the most fascinating and unique games I think I've ever seen. It was actually on Friday night when I was supposed to be writing my letter. It was because I was playing Drawd at my friend's place, and I couldn't stop. It was just so interesting. So yeah, look that up. I might actually do some videos on it later. Then we stayed up way too late playing Drawd. And then today, my plan was to go to the super, super early signing. I say super, super early. It starts at 10. My plan was just to wake up, go, get there like before the event opens, be like first in line so I didn't miss it. But at the same time, I wasn't that worried because I was terrible and naive. And in past years, I've gone to signings at TCAF for like Western artists and stuff. And naively, I thought, oh, they probably won't even be as popular as these Western artists because these Western artists are pretty popular within the scene in the West. But no, so, you know, I'm like hanging out at my friend's place. There's like 4 of us there. We're eating breakfast. We're watching YouTube videos. It's great. It's like a nice, happy, lazy Sunday morning. We watched a bunch of stuff about Lil Tay, the 9-year-old rapper who got her mom fired. It was fun. It was interesting. It was hilarious. And then suddenly I looked at the time and it's like, oh, geez, like TCAF is open now. It's 9:20 or something. We're late AF. We gotta go. So we went and it was full. I think we were just a little late. But basically they pre-book the line. They're like, okay, everyone past this point is not getting something signed because like they want to leave time for each signature. They don't want to just rush him through ASAP, and he's got other commitments. So I'm like, okay, that's reasonable, but damn it. So then we just kind of like wandered around a bit. Still a lot of stuff I hadn't seen just because yesterday I was like in the panel most of the time. And then he has what was advertised as like a drawing demonstration. So I was like really excited about that. I really wanted to see that. So we figured, okay, let's just get there like ASAP. Let's get there like as soon as the previous event is done or whatever. So we were like the second or third people there, and the other people there had sat right in the front, and I was joking about like, oh, we gotta take like the super fanboy seats, so we sat right in the front too. And then some other people showed up, and we started talking, and it was like this was great. So I had brought in my continued vain efforts to become somewhat special to Sensei, to somehow distinguish myself from the other fans. I had brought like some slightly more obscure work. I brought his art book, Control T, that I wanted him to sign. This is a really beautiful collection of all sorts of things. And I had brought my favorite single volume of his actual manga, Before Dawn and the End of the World. And I was hoping, you know, in my delusions that we could like talk about this and I could show him the parts that were like my absolute favorite, which is, for the record, like this spread and the following and preceding pages in the final chapter. I think this is like, that's probably some of my favorite things in all of manga. But one of the other people that had showed up super early for the demo, who was apparently first in line for the signings that morning, had brought every single volume that Asano had released in Japanese, like including the ones I had brought, including all the ones I own, including a bunch that I didn't even own. So I was like, okay, I'm like a little outclassed here. And then we got like talking about his work in general, and there was like a woman sitting behind me who had read his most recent work that, like before this weekend, I was only just vaguely aware that it existed, but apparently it's amazing and really powerful, and it's like, you gotta read it. It's like, oh man. And she had read it in Japanese! And so I ended up talking with her for quite a while. We had a really nice conversation. She translates patents from Japanese to English, which is so cool, and not even, like, something I just never considered the existence of as a career. She said she had also done work in like manga translation and in subtitling, like for official anime subtitles, but it doesn't pay anywhere near as well as the patents. And the patents were actually pretty interesting too, which I could imagine. So yeah, that was cool. She's like N1 certified. She's been studying Japanese for a long time. I think she's like the most powerful Japanese speaker I know outside of Japanese people. There were some Japanese people there too, which was cool. So it's like, man, I'm outclassed. And like the one like kind of trump card that I didn't ever actually expect to play, that I didn't really think was necessary. Or rather like, okay, so basically I helped scanlate Oyasumi Punpun. I've probably mentioned this on the channel before. But when I first found out about Punpun, it was a couple volumes in, maybe 4 volumes in. And it was like not very popular, kind of like a tiny little cult following on 4chan. It was in a 4chan thread that someone was dumping it that I found it. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. It like really resonated with me. I think I was in grade 10 or 11 or something. I know I started scanlating it right after I started university. Anyways, yeah, so I realized that there was like a bunch of volumes out that nobody was scanlating. And I contacted Hawks, who had done translations of the last few volumes, and he's like, yeah, just no one is buying the raws. So I did it. I bought all of the ones that were out, I debinded them, I scanned them, I sent them over, he translated them. And then I did that for the rest of the series. And I think it went fine. I don't know. It's the first time I'd ever done anything like that. I think, and the scanlations, of course, were hugely popular. I really do think it helped contribute to his popularity in the West in a non-insignificant way. The extent that I feel, I don't know, like partially responsible that he was there at all. So I felt like I did feel good about that, but at the same time, like, it is piracy. Like, it is illegal, and I don't know if he would appreciate that. I don't know if he would like understand that maybe it was worth it in the long run, or if he would just see that as lost sales, especially now that the official English releases are out. The existence of these pirated copies, which I'm sure are still all over the internet, is like direct competition for sales. There was certainly no way that I could ever express any of this in Japanese. But what I realized too is that a lot of the like true Dai fans, the Hontoni Dai fans, didn't need that service. They were just Japanese readers that could read it in Japanese. Then I felt like, oh man, I'm totally outclassed. But I don't know. I felt like amazed at how readily I could have like good conversations with the people there while we were waiting for this event to start, because we showed up hella early. I think we were sitting there for about an hour. And conversations that turned like fairly deep and profound, like talking about like loneliness and devotion, and to what extent can you survive isolation in order to accomplish things. And I was like, man, this is turning very bleak and existential, which feels very appropriate for this event. And yeah, it felt really wonderful, and like it made sense that all of us there that were gathered because of our mutual love of this work would have kind of these same feelings and these same sentiments, and understand each other so readily. Anyways, so we talked for quite a while, and then the presentation started. It wasn't actually a live drawing demonstration. He explained very early on the unfeasibility of that because his artistic process is so involved. And then he went through quite detailed, step by step, how he creates like various aspects of his work. Um, and not much of it was like a huge surprise to me, but in case you don't know, it's actually really cool the way he works. So I'll try to find like a good example. So first he'll go out into the world and take photos. So like these panels here, the background, or these panels, or most of his backgrounds for real world scenes start with photographs. So of course he has to be a pretty amazing photographer to get the kind of compositions he wants, to catch the sort of mood he wants. But then the foresight too, to be able to take the picture while like imagining the characters, like imagining how they'll be positioned, what they'll be saying in the scene. Like that to me is amazing. So he takes those and he edits them, changing signs and stuff, and changing little details of them, making them black and white so that it looks like manga. It has that monochromaticness, and then drawing the characters over top. So he says, yeah, this is how I do most of my backgrounds, but there's a lot of situations where this isn't feasible, where I can't get just free reign to take as many pictures as I want. So what he does instead is that from a reference image, so the example he used for this was the Japanese diet. Like obviously he can't get into the council room of the Japanese diet. So what does he do if he needs a scene set there and he needs like multiple angles of shots from there? So he gets some reference pictures and then he 3D models it. This I did not know at all. It blew my mind. 3D models it, and then within the 3D model, he takes pictures, getting the exact angles he wants, and then he edits the pictures of the 3D models to make it in line in terms of like texture and realism and stuff with the photographs he has as reference. So that was like, oh, okay. And he's going even further now that he's. Oh, I totally forgot to mention something. Well, while we were there, so the woman I was talking to that like translates patents and stuff was from Chicago. She had come up just for this, which I was like, okay, that's cool. But then there was a girl across the aisle away that had flown in from LA, from Los Angeles, just for this. So that was like, whew, I am not the die fan that I thought I would be. Oh yeah. There's another part of the story too. This is just sort of like sad. So it was like I had a friend who was coming, and he also wanted to see this stuff and get signed signatures. And he was like, "Oh, I got here, and there was already a lineup for the next signing, the signing that was happening after the demonstration event." And my plan was to just go straight there after the panel, like after the demonstration panel. I thought, because there was like an hour between those, that would be enough. But no, like before the panel even started, my friend was like 36th in line, and they were going to cap it at 60. So he was like, you gotta get over here now if you want to get something signed. So I was conflicted, and I don't know, like once I realized that this other guy had brought even more obscure things for him to sign, and other people were talking about crazy obscure things that they had brought that he had signed, like things I hadn't even heard of that were related to him. So I was like, jeez, I didn't value the signature that much. I would rather see the panel. I would rather see this process. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just not going to get anything signed. I kind of felt bad. And then they went and they gave everybody who was in line a voucher and said, okay, this is your number. Show back up at 1 o'clock or whatever, and you can get in line and get signed. You guys can go see the panel now. It's like, oh man, so I could have done both. But you know, as a result of that, I was able to sit right up close, front row, and be able to really see him, see his face, see the nuance of his expression as he talked about his work. Anyways, oh yeah, so back to the presentation he was giving. Um, yeah, he was talking about like for the destruction. I haven't even gotten this far yet, but there's like mechs and stuff in it. I felt bad because like I feel like a lot of people there don't read scanlations, which is cool. They just read the official releases, but the official releases have only released the first volume, and there was like spoilers for me, and I'm in like the third or fourth volume in my reading of it. Well, we'll read more of it soon, don't worry. Hopefully I like to get caught up so that I don't have an embarrassing spoiler situation like this. But for them, like, these were big spoilers. But yeah, he was showing how, like, he'll 3D model a mech, and then he'll, like, insert and position the mech, and then he'll draw over it and stuff. I just thought it was so cool. It really felt like an evolution of the medium. And he talked a bit about how there's been blowback against this and resistance to this, and when people find out that he's doing this, there's kind of a shame. And it really highlighted to me, like, I don't think in the West this sort of thing exists. Like, I was thinking about in the Marvel movie, if it ever was, like, leaked that it wasn't really those guys doing the stunts, or like, I don't know, like, where that the CGI wasn't the work of some one, like, maestro, but actually just teams and teams of people that had huge server farms, that there would be some sort of blowback. Like, and at the same time, manga is actually so much more collaborative than I think most people realize or give credit to. Most big mangaka, Asano included, and he often mentioned, like, his assistants. He has a staff. He said, oh yeah, me and my staff worked on this. Like, I got them to do, like, the detail work of the mothership or whatever. And it's interesting to me that that's, like, sort of hidden, that manga is still presented as like an auteur genre, that you put all of the creative control and influence and everything is attributed to the sole person, or in some cases like a duo, but it's like very isolated and focused support. Even though there's so many people that in various ways help and contribute, like his editor was there, and an editor can have a huge impact on a series. For better or worse sometimes. And it's like, if I can go on a tangent here a bit, but I mean, you're 47 minutes into this video. Oh my god, I thought this was gonna be a pretty short video. I'm forgetting stuff too. I was gonna show you this. I bought the Solinen epilogue, which actually is in Control T, or part of it is, and then another part of it I think is brand new. So that's cool. I'll read that at some point. I think that's all I bought. So if you're only watching this to see stuff I bought, you can tune out now. Anyways, so yeah, this is kind of how I think of it. Is like Japan has these systems that are just like kind of inherently unfair. So another one that comes to mind is like kind of the Kohai-senpai relationship. And of course, I'm only really talking about my understanding of this through anime, so my apologies if this isn't really that accurate. But it's sort of like the Kohai is so subservient to the senpai, in terms of like accreditation, the senpai praised, and the Kohai kind of goes overlooked, in terms of like doing tedious tasks, cleaning up for things, preparing things, in terms of like doing favors and feeling kind of obligated to help your senpai. But it's like you do all of it with the promise that eventually you will become the senpai. So even if it's an unfair relationship, it enables the person who's currently in the senpai role to do extraordinary things that they couldn't do without this sort of support. And to do it in kind of a more selfish achievement type feeling where they can really own those achievements, because the role of the Kohai is so minimalized and neglected, such that it's like, in some senses, maybe not the important senses, but in some senses, it's a greater feeling of achievement than through true collaboration. And it's like, even though it's unfair when you're the Kohai and maybe miserable, you know that next year, or however long it takes, you're going to become the senpai and somebody else is going to do that for you. It's like that promise is what allows you to kind of keep going through it. And I feel like maybe there's a similar relationship between the mangaka and their assistants. Maybe, I don't know. That's a bit of speculation. Um, so yeah, what else? Talked a lot about like the 3D modeling. He showed how he made this poster. This is like the finale. So what he did, this is so cool. They created all of these fake manga covers. There's like dozens and dozens of different ones. And then they put them all on 3D models of books in different positions of openness and wideness. And then you could pose this kind of like 3D sculpture of all of the books exploding. And then he kind of just drew in and around that. And put filters and effects and stuff on the 3D sculpture so that it looks seamless. Pretty damn cool. That's like, that feels like I'm glimpsing kind of the a pan-medium creative future that technology is just enabling more and more every day. Because it's not even so much about what can be done, but like what can be done easily. What can be done in a way that gels in with the creative traditions and the talents that already exist. So like he got his start in illustration and in drawing manga and stuff, but at some point the computer opened itself up as a tool for him. The computer became something that he can access to go even further. That to me is very cool. I don't know where I'm going to put all these posters up. I kind of like to get them mounted or something. Or alternatively, I don't want to do that and have them like distinct entities. But part of me also wants to do kind of like a poster wall where I just have like a ton of posters up and I don't worry about mounting them and they kind of like overlap. I've seen that in some people's rooms. Looks kind of good. Anyways. So the panel, oh, then there was like a Q&A session at the end of this panel. I thought about, I wasn't going to ask my portrait of the artist as a young man Pun Pun connection question because it seemed kind of like a stupid question. And it seemed like the focus of this was much more about like, technical, the details of the actual process, much less about theme and content. So I just didn't ask any questions and there's some other fun questions asked. The final one was about what he thought of like the Western styles. Like, had he looked around TCAF? What did he think of Western artists? And he was like really impressed and really enthused about them. He was amazed at how many of them used color. I don't know if he mentioned that yesterday or if it was on the Saturday talk or this morning, or if it was on the Saturday talk. Oh, what a long day. Anyways, and then he was like, what I'm so happy and what feels so fresh is like the absence of moe. In Japan, they want to create these moe characters for you to fall in love with, and they're everywhere. They're on like billboards and stuff. But when I leave Japan, I realize like that's really weird and that's creepy, and I'm so glad to be free of it. I was like, oh my god! So now I'm 2 for 2 of meeting Japanese artistic professionals, and them telling me like, you're creepy. First, it was Kumiko's VA saying that Kumire is not a thing, and that people that ship them are delusional. Get out, Yuri. It was heartbreaking. And now Asano saying that he hates moe. No, I don't think he hates moe, but he just, it probably is pretty profound for him, being so immersed in it. At least for me, I have the world of moe, which exists at home, and then the rest of my life, which is moe free. Yeah, so then the panel ended, and I kind of hoped that I could like talk to the people that I was talking with before the panel some more, just because I really felt like I connected to them, and I had a lot more that I wanted to learn about them. But in the nature of these sort of things, we all had to file out quickly, and then we were all just lost in the crowd. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll just never see those people again. There's lots of like feelings like that, you know, just kind of slight loss. And of course I didn't get anything signed. I briefly saw my friend who was with his girlfriend on the way to their signing, said hi and stuff, and it's like I realized then, I was like, oh, if I'd written that letter, I could say, could you give him this letter? But what could the letter say? Like, I still don't know. I've been reading you for a long time. You've had a big impact on my life. Maybe something about I really promoted your works in English or something to try to get across this pride I feel in having maybe some small contribution to his popularity in the West. Maybe something about, oh, I read your videos on a YouTube channel and discuss them, and it really means a lot to me to be able to share my appreciation of these works in this way. But I thought maybe that would be confusing too, and also I'm not even caught up on his manga on this channel. So I don't know. Overall I felt like very disappointed in myself, I guess. Disappointed that my Japanese wasn't as far along as I'd like it to be, such that even if I did have an opportunity to speak with him, it would have to be through the interpreter or in choppy, pointless sentences. I was disappointed that I didn't schedule myself better, that I was watching stupid Lil Tay videos this morning instead of showing up earlier and going to the signing, just losing track of time. Mostly I was just disappointed that I didn't feel special. That I didn't feel like I could make myself stand out in any way, or even if I couldn't make myself stand out in any way, that I could feel kind of the reciprocal feeling of adoration I had for him, the impact that I felt he had on me, that I could feel what it was like to have that sort of impact on someone else. And don't get me wrong, like, I do think I have an impact on other people. Like on this YouTube channel, people have really kindly talked about the way that watching this channel has made them change their appreciation for manga in some ways, or to start their own projects similar to this, or their own projects in general, and that like really touches me. That makes me feel really happy. But it's kind of different in a way, because with this, it's always kind of like secondary content. It's that I'm helping people appreciate something that someone else has made. It's not things that I myself am making. Um, and I thought too, like, so a theme of all the things I was learning about creation and the story that Asano told in different forms and different snapshots of his life is that, like, true creative fulfillment often comes at the price of isolation. That at many times in his life he felt totally cut off from the world, just working nonstop on his manga. He told an anecdote. In the interview on Saturday, they were asking about the cashier character in What a Wonderful World, that appears kind of sporadically and then suddenly kind of gets like a few chapters of focus just on him. And she was asking, like, what made you choose to do that, to just kind of like pick out a background character and devote a little story arc to him? And Asano was like, well, at the time, the convenience store person that was in the convenience store in the building that I lived in, I was like the only person I would see for like weeks on end. You know, I would just go down there and buy food, and that was the only person I had any interaction with. So it seemed to me very natural to want to tell a story about a person like that. And I mean, that was, of course, the point of his anecdote was that, but it struck me how casually it seemed and how of like a foregone conclusion he made it, that he was in that intensity of isolation. And same with the woman I was talking to that translated patents. We were talking about how she learned Japanese and how she had gotten so good. And she had taught English in Japan, and we talked about that experience. I don't mean to try to like capture her words or anything. This is just a stranger that I met once. But I got the idea that like it wasn't the best time in her life, that she often did feel very lonely and isolated from the world, and kind of cut off. Being in Japan, being a gaijin in Japan, we kind of talked about that experience, but that it was extremely helpful for her to learn Japanese, like that during her time there, she really, really studied. And it's like, I don't know, man. Could I really do it? This is what I was thinking about on the way back. Like, I really want to be an artist. I really want to create things that have a profound impact on people, like original things, like my own writing, my own music, my own comics, my own video games. So that's about it. Movies, maybe. I don't know. Anything, everything. I have a hunger to do that. But the cost of it is actually so major, and I realized that like so much of what I did, like if I really was creatively devoted, why would I be playing Draught? Why would I go see Avengers? Why would I watch a bunch of Lil Tay videos with my friends? Like I would have a reason. I would have a strict utility metric that was like no. If I was really taking myself seriously on these projects. And moreover, like I think it would skew even if I did indulge myself and was like, all right, let's see what this Marvel movie business is about. For me now, as kind of this like cultural omnivore, I think of myself as, where I want to know about everything and I want to appreciate everything and I love everything. How is it that I could, like, I don't know, can you really see something like that and know it's making like billions and billions of dollars and is going to be like biggest movie of the year probably? Which, you know, all things aside about the movie, the like thinking about that sometimes, like, okay, this is it. This is like the largest hitting object of pop culture that I've probably ever witnessed, or at least that I'm witnessing right now. Like this is the cultural moment right now. That felt weird sometimes, but that's a whole other thing. At any rate, yeah, it's like could I if I was like really serious about writing a novel, if I was working on it like every day, like a job, could I go see something like that and then go home and work on my novel and not be affected by it? I kind of think no. Like I think if I really wanted to enjoy the movie and to experience the movie on its terms and to have the best possible time, then I couldn't just that's a funny joke with the movie. I couldn't just kill half of my emotions and turn that part off and just focus. And I know too that I will almost never turn down a request from friends to do things. That like on Friday night, I was so sure that I would go home and work on this letter, and all it took was a friend being like, "What are you up to? You want to hang out?" It's like, "Yeah," and I was over there playing Drod. Like, God, it's just my need for socialization, my need to share things with people immediately, even if it's something else, even if it's just my appreciation of something. That seems to outweigh my creative drive. That's what I realized. That and I realized too that like that's important. I really think that's important. And that when I saw Asano, there was all of these peripheral people around him. There was the lady that worked at Viz promoting it. There was the moderator, scholar lady that was interviewing him. There was the interpreter. There was all of us fans that needed to be there for the event to make sense in the first place. And then, you know, there's me here now, like really trying to get these experiences across so that I can share what it was like as much as possible for the people that couldn't make it. Although you guys have no excuse now. That lady flew from LA. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how the. Some people are so rich. Okay. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I feel kind of better about myself, but it's like I think they're both necessary for an artistic culture to thrive. You need both the creators and the appreciators. Um, and it seems like through my patterns of desire and what I like to do consistently and what I'm good at, probably I should be in the latter category. I should be in the appreciator. But it's not what I want. It's not I still just really want to be an artist. I still just want to be special. I still want to be at the table where Asano was and to know that I had done something so great that, I don't know. I don't even know if that's what he's thinking. I don't know. Anyways, this video is over an hour long. Um, After that, all of that, we left. I went back to my friend's place and got my stuff, and then I went to my aunt's place for Mother's Day. And we did a bunch of stuff there, and then my mom drove me home, and then I made this video. That was my weekend. I don't know. So the theme of the weekend, I think, is just these two classes of people. And I was thinking all the way back to that guy I met on the subway. Even he is definitely in the former class. Even though I don't think his practices make any scientific sense, or will do better than placebo. Which is, placebo's pretty strong, so I shouldn't knock placebo. Even though he has all of that, in a way I envy him, because he truly seemed to believe it. And clearly, if you believe in something like that, it's going to take a very urgent priority in your life. And that to submit to that priority, I'm sure a lot of small things get washed away, which is compelling and romantic to me. And it's like, Asano, when he draws, he must wholly believe that this is worth spending all of that time, all of that isolated, lonely time, all of that painstaking time, going out, taking the photographs, bringing them home, meticulously editing them, drawing these beautiful, grotesque characters over top of them, coming up with plots, writing dialogue, meeting with your editor, meeting with your publisher, going on all of these events. I'm sure there's aspects of these events that even though I envy and idolize and romanticize the idea of them, I'm sure there's aspects of these events and these tours that are god-awful. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever felt that strongly about anything. I wish I could. Or maybe I don't. I don't know. Anyways, that's this video. It's a lot longer than I thought it would be. I hope anyone who watched it all the way through didn't just think it didn't make. I hope it made sense to you. There was like a couple things I really hoped that I could get across through these examples, and some things that I'm going to be thinking about myself. Yeah, that's it. That's TCAF. Overall, I had a great weekend. Don't get me wrong. It was a weekend of like mixed emotions, really strong emotions, but lots and lots of like very fun times too. I don't want to just gloss over those or leave them out. Yeah, and then it's back to work tomorrow. Oh man. Okay, bye.